It's a little odd to do this more than a week after the fact, but for me, stage 15 was the most pivotal of this year's Giro. It was the first serious mountain stage, coming a day after Tinkoff Saxo's Alberto Contador put a fat 2 minutes on his GC rivals to retake the overall lead. His well-represented squad took advantage of a reshuffle in the break around 100k to go to send Sergio Paulinho up the road. There's a very good video out there about breakaway tactics that explains the potential advantages of this, but apparently Tinkoff Saxo hasn't seen it because they kept right on the front, towing the field through rolling terrain at 60 frames per second, which is a pretty good sign not much else is going on, but does make it much easier for Camelback to highlight the effectiveness of their designated litter collection zones. You could argue that Movistar's Giovanni Visconti, a mere 6 minutes down on GC, put the burden of chasing on Tinkoff, but the gap was never more than 3:30, and the virtual GC made Visconti look far less like Tinkoff's problem than Astana's, though they did have a rider in the break too. While aggression in the bunch remained reserved for fans' GoPros, Visconti and Sky's Konstantin Syodtsov attacked the escape. AG Desert's Hubert Dupont and BMC's Brent Bookwalter eventually made the bridge, while everyone else, including Rosa and Paulinho, was kinda like meh. The cast-offs were recaptured at 49k to go, which means now literally the entire Tinkoff team was chasing a break mostly to the benefit of the GC riders in blue lined up behind them. The team did protect Contador well through the general mob scene leading into this ungodly hairpin at the foot of the Passo d'Aone at 38k to go, but it rapidly became clear that the squad might have overextended itself as Astana took over pacemaking and Contador found himself increasingly isolated. As Astana put 5 riders at the front of the GC group, coincidentally the same number of positives they had last season, you might think they'd try to send someone up the road, especially since Contador had thus far been undroppable, was in no position to chase now, and Astana had 2 well-placed GC riders, in part because Mikel Landa had gained time on stage 8 where he put in a comparatively early attack that Contador would not have logically followed. But instead, Astana rode more or less as Tinkoff would have, limiting the breakaway's gap to under 2 minutes before controlling a wild descent that could have been a huge advantage for a relatively fresh solo rider. Astana's chase recaptured all the escapees but Dupont and seemed dead set on grinding to a showdown where Landa or Fabio Aru or both would shell Contador. This is despite the race leader redefining reluctance and taking an extra bottle and feeling good enough to sprint for a few bonus seconds at the foot of the last climb. As Dupont was caught, there was no let-up. Astana winnowed down the lead group to 8 before finally launching Landa with just 2.9k to go, well short of stage 8's attack. Contador had no trouble responding and countering, which forced Aru to work to chase down the rider on whom he's supposed to be gaining GC time and bring Katusha's Yuri Trofimov along for the ride. As the 4 regrouped, Contador had a clear game plan, riding slowly in a big gear at the front and looking back, with zero interest in doing anything but responding to his opponent's attacks and zero trouble matching them when they came. In a very Giro-y failure of race management, the chase cars and motos were let into a minuscule gap to Trofimov, who used them gamely to slingshot past the other 3 just outside the final K. Contador seemed to respond but gained little ground, and instead kept focus on matching and possibly trying to intimidate Aru, the better placed of the 2 Astanas. But Contador wasn't invincible. When Landa hit out for the stage win, he didn't or couldn't respond, and rode side by side with Aru, almost daring him to attack. As Landa approached the final bend, Aru took the bait but faltered before the line, letting Contador add a second on the clock and another 4 in bonuses to his GC advantage. There are no apples-to-apples comparisons between stages, but it's worth noting that this Giro won't be remembered as a Contador romp largely because, on stage 20, Astana leveraged a numerical advantage on an isolated Contador on the day's penultimate climb some 30k from the line, forcing him to limp to his second title over 2 minutes behind an Aru stage win. One can only speculate on what might have happened had Astana tried the same strategy a week earlier. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that's how the race was won.